we haven't said or we haven't asked that you'd like to say? Here's your chance.
Well, if you look at the issues from the beginning, I suppose we've gone through them at some point, but it was more done as a sort of response to a criticism or to a counterpoint.
Okay, but I'm giving you the opportunity right now.
I don't have anything prepared in
Okay.
terms of
All right.
explanation. So,
Okay. I just want to make sure that you feel like you've been heard here.
Yeah.
So that if there's anything you have to say that you know, I understand what you're saying is that you feel like the questions were slanted, but I also want to give you, without any bias, a chance to say anything you'd like to say.
Absolutely.
Or maybe what you want to say is this page speaks for itself. I mean,
I suppose so. I'm trying to think if actually trying to give the introduction just by sort of by speech instead of textual representation. I think a lot of people have some sort of preconception about what the deal means, and the perpetuation of these biased facts are being kind of repeated here today as we have this conversation. But if a person wants to look at the other side of things, you have to give quite a long explanation of an explanation of the spin doctrine and what actually is happening in reality for each of the individual issues. We could actually start with the issues of explaining what the deal is about. And I think Jono agrees that the deal is quite damaging to the free software community.
Yes,
now, if you look at if you look at what has happened since then, and one of the things the site gets lots of criticism for, it's not necessarily to do just with Novell, although the Novell issue is not resolved. So it's really in the same situation it's always been in. If you try to look at Microsoft's involvement, because one of the issues is that Novell actually brings Microsoft into the conversation and actually gives it a certain chance to influence the free software movement, or the open source movement, as they call it. Then you have to look at Microsoft's behavior as well, and you actually have to assess the implications of Novell's bridging of, actually ushering Microsoft into the free software community. And you have to look at the acts of Microsoft and what role in these actions Novell is actually playing. Okay, so I suppose if you look at the site itself, a lot of the concerns have been raised about not just Novell, but the various companies that do try to put at certain jeopardy the free software movement in certain. So we didn't quite concentrate on that, and the focus on the site is about a lot broader than just the Novell deal. So
great. Well, I think one thing that I think we all, much as we may disagree on the specifics, I think that one thing we all have a tremendous amount of respect for is the fact that you came onto Floss Weekly and talked about the project, and talked about your perspectives, and talked about something that you're concerned about. And I've been watching the IRC flickering past in the Floss channel, and people have been enjoying the interview and commenting on it. So thanks a lot for coming on the show, Roy.
No problem.
thank you.
And where can people find out more about Boycott Novell?
Nice. Probably just Google it, so I suppose they'll find it.
Or just go to boycottnovell.com. Thank you, Roy.
Thanks
care.
a lot, Roy. Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye. I wouldn't want to mess with him. The guy's a bodybuilder. You see his picture? He's like this big.
He's a big dude, isn't he?
I don't want to mess with him. I had no idea what I was getting into when we began this show. So I've been sitting here quite rapt and not really sure what to think. I mean, personally, and I think people know this, I'm not a purist regarding open source. In fact, I'm far from it. I don't think RMS would like me too much either. But I also understand his point. And I am one of those people who has often kind of almost in a knee-jerk way taken sides against Microsoft. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are.
I'm not a fan. And I didn't really see the problems when Novell made a deal with Microsoft, and I think my eyes have been open reading what I've read now on boycottnovell.com. So there's something of real value on the site. And as he points out, of late, the site has really been mostly a news site. If you read their feed,
there's a tremendous amount of news that comes out of Roy. I mean, I subscribe to his Twitter feed. I get a lot of my news from him.
Yeah, a lot of great links. It's not particularly all, this kind of hardcore open source advocacy.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I think it was really good that he came in the show, and I'm very conscious of the fact that I don't want to talk about him when he's not on the show, because the worst thing is when when somebody does an interview and then the hosts have a chat about it afterwards.
What do you think of that guy?
And then they lay in, and it's like he came on the show.
I think
he said his points, and I know he feels like I was maybe a little bit slanted, but I wanted to give him an opportunity to respond to the criticisms that people and other people made these criticisms as well. So, and I think he did that very well. And I think he also communicated the goals of the project. He talked about, the history and all the rest of it. So I think he did a great job on the show.
Yeah, I had no idea that this was an ambush.
Shut up.
You did it so gently. No,
it's a big conspiracy.
No, and you did talk to him ahead of time. You explained to him your point of view. I don't think at any time he didn't know what he was getting into. And to be honest, as somebody who really has had no opinion, had not even heard of this beforehand coming into this, I find it fascinating. One of the things that's always been true of the open source community is it's fractious. There are lots of fights. There's lots of different point of views, and it's big enough to encompass them all.
Yeah, but you know what? When we get together and we hug each other, it's just an incredible hug fest.
I'm not sure I want to know about that. I managed to miss that, but no, I think that these are tough issues all around. And it's really appropriate to have a strong feeling and to advocate on the part of your feeling, but most important, to have the conversation. And to listen to what other people have to say. And I think Roy was superb in that respect. He could have stomped off, and he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, agree or disagree, he stayed on for the show, and he made his point, and that's an admirable thing. So.
Yeah, and I think we will hear from people who have other opinions. I think you already have. Let me ask you one question.
Yeah,
was this your idea or Randall's idea?
Well, it was actually neither. Quite a while back, I invited Roy onto the show, and he declined, and which is fine. I mean, guests decline all the time. And then just a couple of weeks back, Roy pinged me on IRC, and he said, is the invitation still open to come on FLOSS? So I said, yeah, absolutely.
Good. I think it was well worth doing and fascinating. And a little bit of a departure. We normally like to talk about people who are making things. But I think that there are so many issues. We've had even Mogul on talking about GPL3. These are also very important issues. Well, Jono, Randall was not here, but he will be, I think, back next week, yes, after he's done with his event.
Indeed.
And do you know who he has next week? Because this is the time in the show where Randall would plug that.
This is the time in the show, as Jono very quickly tries to open up the list.
I have no idea, but I just show up. That's all I have to do, really. Is just appear, and then magically you guys appear on Skype, and we have a show. Good news on the OG front.
So the email.
Yeah, a very good friend of the Twit Network. Ludwig, who is a great programmer and has written a lot of really interesting web stuff.